Aloha, it's Kiana, and here are today's top Hawaii headlines from the editors at the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. Also, mahalo to Longs Drugs Hawaii for sponsoring the show. Head on over to your neighborhood Longs Drugs for all your shopping needs. A 50-year-old Honolulu cold case has been solved thanks to modern DNA analysis. Nancy Elaine Anderson was 19 when she was found stabbed and unresponsive in her Waikiki apartment in 1972. A Michigan native, Anderson had moved to Hawaii a few months earlier and was working at the McDonald's at Ala Moana Center. Honolulu Police Department investigators conducted a thorough investigation after her death, but failed to turn up any leads. Investigators working on the cold case turned to Parabon Nanolabs, a DNA technology company based out of Virginia. Parabon used DNA evidence to create a snapshot of what the suspect may have looked like at the time of the murder. DNA comparison was also used and led to the arrest of 77-year-old Tudor Chirila. He was taken into custody today in Reno, Nevada, and is awaiting extradition to Hawaii. The University of Hawaii will be lifting all remaining face mask requirements on its campuses after Friday. Until now, UH has continued to require masks indoors in classrooms, shared laboratory spaces, and tightly confined spaces to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. Masking has also been required at other venues when the number of attendees is near maximum capacity. UH said it decided to lift the mask requirements on the recommendation of its medical and public health experts, as well as the latest federal and state guidance. While masks are no longer required in classrooms and common areas, the use of face coverings might be requested at individual offices. Masks are still required for those who contracted the virus and are returning from isolation. UH said masking policies can be reinstated if conditions change. Ken Starr, the former federal appellate judge and attorney whose criminal investigation of Bill Clinton led to the president's impeachment, died today. He was 76. Starr had a reputation as an outstanding lawyer and seemed to be on track to a Supreme Court nomination before the Clinton investigation. Born in Vernon, Texas, and raised in San Antonio, Starr earned his bachelor's, filed a report concluding that the president lied under oath and engaged in obstruction of justice. Clinton was impeached but was acquitted in a Senate trial. In 2020, Starr was recruited to the legal team representing President Donald Trump in the nation's third presidential impeachment trial. Stocks had their worst day in more than 2 years as Wall Street recognized that U.S. inflation is not slowing as much as anticipated. According to a new government report, inflation decelerated to 8.3% in August, instead of the 8.1% economists expected. The data caused a sell-off that dragged the Dow Jones Industrial Average down more than 1,250 points today. The S&P 500 sank 4.3%, the Dow fell 3.9%, and the Nasdaq Composite closed 5.2% lower. The worse-than-expected report has some traders bracing for the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates by a full point. The Fed was expected to hike short-term rates by 0.75 percentage point at its meeting next week as part of an aggressive strategy to cool inflation. A 21-year-old sailor will be laid to rest today in Arlington National Cemetery more than 80 years after he was killed in the attack on Pearl Harbor. Bert Jacobson was among the more than 400 sailors and Marines killed when the USS Oklahoma was hit by torpedoes on December 7, 1941. It took a decades-long effort to identify Jacobson's remains. The USS Oklahoma remained submerged for 2 years after its sinking before it was refloated and bodies were recovered. A few years later, the graves of those buried anonymously were reopened in the hopes that dental records might lead to their names. 27 sets of remains were not identified and had to be reinterred at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific at Punch Bowl. Another effort to identify about 100 sets of remains came up empty in 2003. Then, in 2015, the Department of Defense exhumed the remains again as part of a Project Oklahoma. 355 men, including Jacobson, were identified. For more on these stories and all the latest headlines, subscribe to the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. Visit Hawaii's top source for breaking news online at staradvertiser.com and download the Starr-Advertiser mobile app. Mahalo, have a great day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.